Hello, my divine, infinite human beings, you're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Elizabeth Monroy. I'm your host for Infinite Human Talk Show. And we're ready to roll. Today, we are taking on an amazing topic that probably a lot of people don't want to take on, but it's just we really need to look at it if we're really going to be doing true ascension. I think everybody that's tuning in, attuned to me, is on the true ascension path. All right, the true path, and we have to look at fear. Okay, fear. Today we're going to be just putting it to rest. We're going to be releasing it. We're going to be letting it go from ourselves, physically, from our emotional bodies, emotionally, from our mindset, from the fear programming that we've had for eons on this planet that has been fear based, and spiritually from being cut off, basically severed from our true infinite God source, from our true divine eternal loving mother and loving father, and having ourselves usurped by a false, tyrannical, narcissistic, psychopathic God. And of course, we have all been traumatized. We've been under MK Ultra trauma-based mind control, which has created splits in our soul, fragments of our soul that we call reincarnation, but they're really just severed aspects of our soul. And as we ascend into the higher frequencies where fear is not a factor, where we finally can realize fear is an illusion. But we're not going to do any spiritual bypassing. So we're going to look at the monster, the beast in the eyes, because we have been living, so many of us, myself included, and I always talk about things that come up for me personally, because I feel like that that I'm part of a bigger collective, my spiritual family, especially vertically. And a lot of you guys are waking up down here in 3D Earth, and when you hear me, hopefully the words I say are a catalyst to you to clear this fear programming, because it's the biggest block, the biggest impeding structure in doing what we're supposed to be doing right now, co-creating, having a beautiful, wonderful time on the crystal spiral of life, creating a beautiful new earth. But fear, we have to put that to rest, because it's part of the old false Fibonacci spiral of death. Okay. And if you look at the death cult, everything about where we've been living in has been to keep you immobilized in fear, in survival mode, in, constant second guessing, because we've been living in a false reality. Okay, none of this was ever supposed to happen. They're all false timelines that are now fizzling out. They're all part of a duality that was never, we were supposed to experience it, but not to the extent that we've had our divine hologram hacked into. So I'm going to look at this kind of in a very, I would say, holistic way, because I think a lot of people, if you look at the spiritual communities, they might talk about, and we talked about the dark flowering, or the Metatronic reversals, or the dark entities, or, shielding yourself, protecting yourself. And of course, all that is valid and real. And it's very important that you understand that you're not neurotic. You're not crazy. This has really been happening. These shadow creatures, these dark entities that have been trying to manipulate you, that have been trying to take over your mind, that have been trying to possess you, is very real. But sometimes when you are just focused on that, we have this schism going on. It's kind of like the same schism between the masculine and the feminine, and the schism between the spiritual community and then the people that are doing stuff. But if you go to like the I happen to be have a master's in mental health counseling, and I come from a family of psychotherapists, and trained in that. And if you come, and then my husband was a physician. So if you look at the medical community, of neurology, of psychiatry, of psychology, if you start talking about entities or possession, or, these, dark fatal leagues that have been trying to sabotage your existence and have been constantly attacking you, then of course they're going to think you're crazy and put you in a mental institute. And so we're all terrified of that. So we haven't been able to really have the help or the support we've needed, because if we did come clean about what we're seeing, because most of us, especially those of us who are highly encrypted with very high genetics, very high intuitive or psychic abilities, especially in the olden days, those that come from the Krystic Mashi Grail lines, have always had very psychic abilities, and they've had to hide them, because if you look at our false history, it's always been hunting down, destroying, raping for the genetics. And I've talked a lot about this. And of course, all the traumatic trauma, Inquisition, burn the witch, strangulation, decapitation, all these traumatic deaths, which have been all part of the plan to keep us paralyzed from doing exactly what we're doing right now in this moment, because it's ending. All that is ending, but we we still have that stored. Sorry, and it's very close to my heart too. So I'm speaking from my heart right now. I'm not just this is not an intellectual pursuit. This is something I'm dealing with too, overcoming the illusion of fear that this is going to happen again. Because of course we're thinking it's going to happen again, because every time we started to break out, every time we started to build a little bit of power, we started to actually help people. Perhaps we were the good witch that provided the herbal remedies, or the healing that the community needed, but we would get found out, we would get hunted down, we would get persecuted, we would get assassinated, we would have horrible things happen to us. Okay. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I think you guys have the memory of that, even if you don't remember it in your mind, which as you ascend, you start to remember all your fragmented selves. That's part of healing, but you have the cellular memory. So it might explain why, if you're like me, I mean, I used to always have a terrified fear of bathtubs, because one of my lives, I drowned in a bathtub, for example. It explains all these phobias, that Freud, the Freudians, they are, or even Jung, they think it's a collective consciousness, but it's your collective consciousness, because you remember, your body remembers, your body carries this trauma. It explains genetically inherited diseases that otherwise you can't explain, why you always have certain parts of your body that are always giving you problems, why you happen to be a nervous person, why a lot of women in impasse, and again, we go back to this Maji Grail line, those of us who are here, whether you call yourself Femmes, Adashi Adepts, Aquashi, Indigos, Starseeds, light workers, we have these abilities, and we're very we're very empathetic, we're very we're empaths, we're feeling, we're very sensitive. That you would say, oh, you're so sensitive, like that's something bad, but that's how we are, because we feel with all of ourselves, because we're intuitive. We can walk into a room, we can sense the energy in the room, and that's how we survive, because most of us have actually were born into very psychopathic, dysfunctional family units. So we had to deal with, is daddy drunk and is he going to beat me or rape me a lot of times? Or is mommy going to, is mommy upset? Is she going to like storm into my room in the middle of the night and yell at me? I mean, I wrote about that in my book, The Pathway, the Infinite Human. So I had some of that growing up too. So a lot of us, I'm just speaking from the heart, a lot of us had that. And so it's time we really have to get it out. And I feel like the energies now are flushing a lot of that out of our systems as they keep every day, they get more and more intense, and the lower frequencies can no longer hide. And I've talked to a lot of you, I've heard a lot of you, telepathically heard you. Have you gotten emails from you, reached out to you? I always kind of watch over you and watch over my tribe and just kind of get the temperature. I feel like there's a lot of fear in the air now. A lot of this is, of course, being stirred up intentionally because, and I'll go back to what I was talking about earlier, just when we start to like feel like we're getting some power, life's going good for us, things are really going well. And that's happened in the false history, the false fragmented timelines that is all we know. So that's what we think of as time. That's our memory right now. Just when things started to get good, just when we felt like we were freeing ourselves up from the matrix, we were experiencing perhaps some freedom from these narcissistic, whether it be a parent, whether it be a narcissistic God that was oppressing us, whether it be a husband, or that we were escaping from, if it's a female, because a lot of the females were always under the control of some father or husband figure, just when we felt like we were getting free, boom, the other shoe dropped. So I think a lot of us are just having that anxiety, that terror, that things are starting to get good. We're kind of feeling that, but we're also afraid that the other shoe is going to drop. Boom, and of course, not just for us, but collectively, many times when our earth, in our hidden history, okay, in the true history of our planet, and we're talking 260 billion years, and on the history of our planet, our earth, that's our time matrix, but just in our earth, when many times when we were just starting to free ourselves, to free ourselves from the grasp of the archons, of the parasites, of the fallen angelics, we were freeing ourselves from the harnesses. Then boom, a pole shift or some kind of catastrophe would happen, and the whole race was annihilated. That has happened before. Our whole Krystic race, the whole planet, the whole, humankind has been annihilated, and we have that in our cellular memory. We have those fears, and they're real fears, so I'm not just looking to say fear is an illusion, because these things did happen in our memories and in our cellular memories and in our bodies. We feel them. So right now they're stirring that up with this whole Armageddon script that they're trying to play out with the Third World War. And then, you see all these catastrophes that are happening, and, the whole corrupted, okay, the Bible, I always say the Holy Bible has a lot of holes in it, because it has truth in it, but it's truth that's been used to tell lies. And the truth is in what's called the Emerald Records, not to be confused with the corrupted Emerald Tablets, or it's in the CD discs. And it is in the Mahabharata. These are all the ancient scrolls that are under the Vatican that were edited out of the Bible. And this is why I do, I don't make anyone outside of myself. They don't have power over me. I don't make any person my guru, my spiritual teacher, my God. But I do pay attention to the information that has been transmitted by Speaker One, currently, in Speaker Two, back, some of the stuff I found, but of course that a lot of that is you just it just comes for me when it comes up, okay? Or I ask questions and I get answers, either from people in the physical or get downloads. But it has helped to clarify a lot of things that I think help us to understand why we feel this way. It's like, you have amnesia and you wake up and you're terrified of lightning or the rain or beetles or and you don't know why. But when you get to the root of it, when you find out why, then you can release it. And I think that's what we're doing right now with this fear thing, because it's all been manufactured on artificial timelines. It really is an illusion. It's been manufactured to keep us, first of all, in a constant state of anxiety. How many people stress? We call it stress now. How many people die from stress, from worrying themselves to death? How many people just run around in a constant, nervous system overload? I've been seeing a lot of stuff about the vagus nerve, and that might be something you want to look into. Things like laughing and humming, help to calm the vagus nerve, which is a nerve we were never supposed to have. Our whole body has been completely corrupted, by to hold this fear, to hold this loose, to hold all this. So sorry, just gonna check in here and see what anybody's saying. Okay, so I'm going on and on because there's so much to say about this, guys. But so just understand, it's not you. You're not a coward. You're not like, especially the men, they get this, you fraidy cat, you scaredy cat. You got to face your fears. You got to man up. You got to face them in the eyes. And this, I think, is one of the concepts and perhaps some of the defects of the whole hero's journey, because you are taught that you have to go into that dark inner cave and face your fears. And I'm here to tell you, no. I know. What did I just say? Oh my God, back up, rewind. I did say something. No. And you know what? I got this today because I have been doing this forever. You got to face your fears. And if you don't know me, if you read my book, The Infinite Human, oh my God, I am a nervous budget, but I do the things that are incredibly courageous, and I just do them, and I like travel all over the world. Now I have Kiki, but before I used to do it on my own, and I'd like be this independent woman who would go to LA on her own and with a teddy bear in my purse. I mean, I still did it, but my inner child was like terrified. So I'm not saying the feelings you have aren't real, and I'm not saying you shouldn't go ahead and do things, like let fear stop you. No, that you have to do, but to like, say you're frightened. I am afraid of, I love water, but I'm also afraid of drowning because I've been drowned so many times, or certain things. And it's like you don't have. And I did actually scuba dive, but it's like I don't have to like go back and stir it up, because it is an illusion. It was all created. This fear, these deaths, these traumatic, tortures, and ways of that we have died, were all created to keep us under control and for loosh, okay, to feed the parasites. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I don't have a copy of my book in front of me. I usually do, but it's on my website, www.infinitehuman.com. You can get the PDF on there. The Infinite Human, it's on Amazon's audiobook, but it goes through all this and explains that that's how they've been feeding off of our lower frequencies. And they've had to keep us imprisoned in a low frequency prison. So what's the first thing you can do to lower your frequency? Be afraid. I mean, just look at someone. The minute they get afraid, they contract, their auras contract, their whole energy field drops. You can't hold high frequency and be fearful at the same time. Okay. And so that gratitude, that love, breathing in, I am, and exhaling peace. And just, now don't start getting all afraid, like, oh my God, I'm never going to raise my frequency because I'm so afraid. You will, because this is pushing it all out of you. All these solar, the solar activity, solar flashes, plasma, Krystic codes, photonic belt, the Schumann resonance off the wall. We are in the higher frequencies, and we are the earth. The energy of the organic earth is on the crystalline spiral. So you cannot stay on the crystalline spiral and maintain yourself in fear. It just won't work. So it's really not even about facing your fears, overcoming your fears, fighting that dragon, fight. Because you know what that does, right? Here's the kicker here, guys. It's the karmic wheel, okay? All right, it's a karmic wheel. What's a wheel? It's a merry-go-round, right? Remember, John Lennon said, you no longer staying on the merry-go-round. I just had to let it go. You have to let that wheel go. So, what is the karmic wheel? You kill me, I have to come back and kill you. Then the next time you have to kill me and kill you. You never get off. Same with fear, okay, I drowned this lifetime, okay, and so I overcame it, I didn't drown, but when you're what happens is it's always beckoning to you. Come on, come in, prove yourself. Prove yourself that you're not afraid. Climb back into the fear pool, the cesspool of fear, because it's a frequency. And once you climb into it, it doesn't matter, because there is no death. I think a lot of people are really beginning to understand that, especially as you start to recall your past lives, you begin to realize there is no death. So you're like, okay, I'm not really afraid of death. What am I afraid of? And you're afraid of life. Why are you afraid of life? Because we've been living in a death cult, and evil is live spelled backwards. Everything has been to stop you from living. And that's what fear does. So if you're always having to prove yourself, oh, yes, I've got to prove myself, and I used to always have that. Like, I used to have to touch the bottom of the pool. I'll be perfectly honest. When I was a kid, in a summer camp, the girls said, you can't leave until you pick up the puck from the bottom of the pool. Then you can have your orange juice. And I was like terrified, but I did it, but it's like I've proved myself so many times, but the fear's still there. Why? Because it's a frequency. It's not something you overcome. You overcome by leaving it behind. You overcome by saying, yeah, I know what you want me to do. You want me to engage with you, but I'm not. You walk away. It's like a narcissist. You're never going to win an argument with the narcissist. You're never going to prove, your worth. You're never going to prove your courage by always trying to prove, you're not afraid of something, by being the hero, by being the courageous one. I mean, you just walk away from it because it's an illusion, and you don't let it stop you from living the life you came here to live. And you know what? The true God, okay, I just say infinite source, which is you, only wants you to experience the path of joy. It only wants you to do what brings you passion and bliss. It only wants you to be filled with love. And that's what the true God, the Father, and the eternal mother that was cut out of the equation of the Father, Son, hungry ghost, and it's God, this tyrannical usurper that cut us off from the true infinite source, took the place, said, I am an angry God. I am a jealous God. You must appease me. You must sacrifice to me. So this struck fear into our hearts all the time. The thunderbolts of Zeus hurling at us, there's just so much in the spiritual garbage that has been thrown at us that we just have to go through and just let it out, because that is not what God wants. If you call it God, infinite source, doesn't matter. That's not why you're here. You're here to live, Live, not evil, live, and to be joyful, and to follow your passion, and to do the things you love, and to radiate and ascend into the higher frequencies, because that's what true ascension is. It's ascension into the frequencies, the higher frequencies of life, of joy, of being one. And I know a lot of people are afraid of ascension because you've been taught, and again, this is some more spiritual garbage I'd like to get rid of. You kind of feel like, you have to surrender yourself to thy will. Well, of course, thy will to a tyrannical, narcissistic God, I mean, nobody wants to do that, right? But it's the opposite, because you are surrendering yourself, to that joyful, to that blissful, to that beautiful part of yourself. And you know what? You don't lose yourself. You gain yourself, more of yourself. You're still yourself. You still are unique. We're taught also, and this is part of that AI singularity thing, that, you're just a cog in the wheel, and you just like surrender yourself and you become part of the Borg collective, part of this hive mind. And your uniqueness is bad, because that's selfish, it's, I don't know, whatever the isms are, communism, socialism, ism. But no, your uniqueness is the most beautiful part of yourself. And the creator, infinite God source within you, wants nothing more than for you to express it to its max. Now, that does bring up some fear. I'll be perfectly honest. Because, and I do that here in Sicily. Okay. I walk around now, I always follow my intuition. I just got to the point where it was very fearful for me to follow my intuition, but it got to the point where it was more terrifying not to, because the intuition would just push me. I mean, it would like, you have to buy this plane and go there. So it was like easier for me to just, put all my fears about just getting on a plane with a suitcase and not knowing anyone and moving to God knows where I would be sent, because I would be, I would get, and Peter and I used to do together. And then when Peter wasn't around, I would do it on my own. But, it just got easier, and I started to trust that process. I started to trust that part of myself, because I realized it wasn't some, hierarchy, this God telling me this is what you have to do. It was a part of me, and it was a part of me that wanted that. And so I started to surrender to that, my will, to the higher aspects of myself, my infinite self, who really knows a lot better. I mean, because it has much higher perspective. The infinite part of you knows where you should be, what you should be doing. And so that is frightening sometimes, because we're so used to, like, well, now we have Siri or Alexa or something to tell you what to do. Wake up, go, oh, your appointment is at this time, and turn right and turn left and wipe your rear end 3 times. And, so, and that's comforting, because we like that feeling of something external. We like to fit into society. We like to be told, good girl, good boy. Oh, yes, you fit in really well, even though we may be living our quiet lives of desperation. Even though we may be miserable, we put on our masks, we put on our bright faces, and we pretend everything's fine, to the point where we can't anymore. And I think so many of you are getting to that point. I feel like the energies are just demanding it. You cannot hang around fake people, fake places, fake jobs, doing fake things that don't feed your soul. And it's getting to that point where, it's a breaking point. So what I'm here to say, someone who's been just a little bit down the road, okay, and I'm getting that to myself. So I'm kind of talking to myself when I talk on the podcast, and that's why I do things like this. That's why I do my courses. That's why I teach. That's why I share myself, because we're all one. We're all part of a collective that's going through this together. Not everyone's going through it, but if you're listening, if you're tuning in, it probably has relevance to you. So this is a big upgrade time, okay? And so everything I talked about before, I just brought out all your fears so you can just put them to rest. And the next fear is, of course, what people think, because you're going to stand out. The more you radiate, the more you hold those higher frequencies. And the first people that are going to come to you, always, it's a test. They're going to test you. They're going to come up and they're going to, okay, me, I walk around with pink. I'm a Okay, I'm like an older foreign woman living on my own, wandering around Sicily, enjoying myself with my Pomeranian doggy. I stand out like a sore thumb. But you know what? And of course, at first, a lot of the men, especially, I mean, that's the last thing they want to do. They want to see, you don't want to see older women who have money, who are independent, who live their own lives. So I have gotten a lot of crap. I mean, just I can't tell you. But you know what? It's just, it's like mosquitoes or gnats. I mean, at first, of course, it's not because, like, oh my God, mafia families, whatever, what I mean? Because, you have to really, I mean, I'm in a place where, the mafia was formed and, they have all that stuff here. But you know what? I don't care. They don't care. I mean, I'm doing my own thing and I'm doing it out of joy. I'm doing it out of love. I'm spending a lot of money here, I mean, I try to make the place better. I try to be a symbol of empowerment, especially to the women that, you don't have to spend your whole life for, your husband or your children or your grandchildren. You can actually get out there and enjoy your own life by yourself, which is, I mean, that's like the most terrifying thing that what I symbolize is probably the most terrifying thing to most traditional kind of Sicilian women because they live their whole life for their family, and I have no family. So that's just me because that's just me being who I am. I didn't set out to do that. I just am being me and enjoying it. And it is hard sometimes. And it is sometimes lonely, but it's who I am, who I chose to be. And you know what? Can't be anyone else. You can't be anyone else but who you are. You really can. You can try, you can pretend, but it ain't going to work, especially now. People that are running around, truthers, telling the truth, talking about the truth, shoving the truth down people. Well, guess what? The real truth is just being who you are. Yes, part of that is speaking the truth, but also just even keeping your mouth shut, but just holding those higher frequencies and really not caring, not even having to convince people, because trying to convince someone is trying to make the area safe for you to be who you are. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to feel safe and make yourself feel safe being who you are wherever you are. It's an inside job. Did you hear that? It's always an inside job. So you're going to have to just become totally okay with being who you are. You want to wear pink, you want to wear black, you want to wear purple, you want to run around naked. Well, you might get a ticket, but find a place where you can do it. I mean, just follow whatever infinite source inside of you is leading you to do. The doors will open. And yes, at first you will, like I said, have the gadflies or whatever, the test people will come up. And you just have to be very firm, and not let them, they'll try to throw you off track, but you just brush them aside and then keep giving. This is what I learned in LA when I was writing screenplays. They said, keep giving them you until you is what they want. Now, not everyone's going to want it, but what will happen is you will magnetize people who do want you. You will draw into you people who, wow, I like what she's saying. Wow. I like that frequency. Wow. I like where she's going. Yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah. And we'll find each other because we have things to do. We have projects to do together. You will find a new family. And I know for me, I'll just say it. And I know many of you probably are feeling it too. I've been feeling a little isolated now, and I've been here in Sicily for 7 years, and I'm like a sore thumb. But I've just been so happy because I've really had a wonderful relationship with with my mother earth, the land, like the trees have become some of my best friends. I sing to my mountains outside my door and the sea. I'm working with all the Davis spirits and of course Kiki and I just travel around and I have the memories of this beautiful land when it was such a sacred, powerful area with all these wonderful divine feminine temples. So I love that. But the more I just am totally at peace with the higher frequencies and really embodying them, the more people do fall away from me. Even family completely. I've tried to hold on to a lot of them, and friends that I've made. I mean, I enjoy them. But there's just not much to talk about, and I'm having a very deep craving to start the next level of my life's work, which is I've talked about that later, but it's starting the whole Infinite Human University, and the whole shifting your life story and becoming co-creators of the and visionaries of the new earth, and especially empowering female creative voices in multimedia. So, and I actually next week I'm going to Florence. I haven't been back since the whole scandemic, and there was a lot of dark stuff that happened in Florence, but I feel like everything's purging. I don't know if you saw this whole bomb went off in Rome. I was going to go to Rome, but I got not yet. And then the bomb went off. So I know there's a lot of stuff clearing there, and I will go there again. But I feel like it's time for me to go just kind of check out my old romping ground. So Kiki and I will be there. But so anyway, I'm getting a lot of upgrading and a lot of things that I had always wanted to do. And I actually closed my film school like right before the whole scandemic, because I said, and I made a video about it. I said, timelines are splitting, two worlds. And I said, I can't do anything until this split has happened. And then I'm going to work with people who are on and want to be on, and help them to get on completely the new timeline, the Crystallis spiral timeline, the ascending timeline. Because people, and at that time I didn't understand it, but I was under heavy attack. And my frequencies were very low at that time too. I mean, there's been such a shift that's happened. So I kept getting sent people. I mean, the people that were coming to me, not just students, but the people I was working with. One person slept with snakes. One of the directors I hired, and the other one was like a student of Maria Brockovich, who was there in Florence when I was there last time. I don't know if you know her, but she does all this pain amplifying, horrible kind of sadistic, satanic art. But anyway, so but I feel like things are clearing, and that's part of our job, and to not let the Fibonacci and the illusions of fear and I have a little bit of anxiety going back to where it was obviously wanted to get me out of there. But I think that's what we're being called to do. And it does take courage, and the courage is just to not even notice it, just to remain peaceful, calm, centered, and focused on where we're going, what we want, and where we're going is the new earth. And what we're doing is we're allowing our beautiful intuitive creativity to spring forth, and we're visionaries, envisioning, and bringing down these higher platforms of the earth into manifestation, or laying the foundations for them, connecting, the true organic timelines, and just holding the higher frequencies as we go through our day-to-day life. So of course we're the vanguard, and it's a little, and I'm doing this broadcast because I'm feeling it, and many of you may be feeling it. I'm usually a little bit ahead of time, so you might be hearing this, months or even years from now. But everyone's on their own, has their own divine timing. But if you are, just remember, don't pay your attention. Don't let them to distract you with the fear mongering, the war and rumors of war, that, because a lot of people are really getting worried about the, the apocalypse, which only means, awareness, awakening things coming to light, or the Armageddon. Don't even put your energy there. Just keep focusing on what you want to have happen. What kind of life do you want to live? What do you want to do? And if you're not, okay, you may be a very spiritual person. You may have a lot of knowledge, colonic sciences, and all the true histories, and the ascension mechanics, and all those things. And hats off, I met so many people who are very well schooled in that, have been studying that for years. But true ascension, I really believe this, okay, happens understanding spiritually what's happened to us, and connecting to infinite source, rather than these false gods that have, or archangels, or all those deceptions that have tried to keep us off track, and who have confounded us. So you want to understand the true mechanics, the true infinite architecture, and the true history, which was supposed to be in the Bible. You want to know that. So that's important to know, especially spiritually, as you expand. But you also have to bring that into physically. You have to purge these lower frequencies, and release all this that's holding your carbon body, in place. And you're going to have to release that. And as you allow we talked about the bright flowering of your plasma, bright flowers popping up, and then your plasma body activating, your other bodies, your light bodies, and activating your catharic red, and reattaching your 12 strands of DNA, so you can truly be infinite God source incarnate, walking around in a physical Krystic body, in the Krystic temple. And so then you are God manifest, a Christ. So that's what you have to do with your physical body. And part of that purging, because you can't separate your physical body from, say, your emotional body. I mean, look at anyone that blushes, that gets embarrassed right away, or that hears some tragic news, and maybe turns pale, or faints. I mean, your body and your emotions are very, very tied in, especially when we're talking about strong emotions like fear, and then grief, sorrow. So you have to purge that. You have to purge all those frequencies, the lower frequencies of that. And then mentally, you have to break this mind control, because that's what they've done. They've spent eons on these false timelines, just pounding in these trauma-based mind control programs. Something bad's going to happen. You're not worthy. The gods will get angry. I laugh about the Chinese people. They say that, they never say, "Oh, what a beautiful baby." They say, "Oh, it's a terror." You look up at the gods, because the gods might be jealous. Oh, it's such an ugly baby. They try to hide all their blessings from people. Or, if they're having a great rice fields, "Oh no, this rice is terrible." And we've been living in that kind of paralyzed, fearful state, that the gods may become angry at us, that somebody else is more powerful than us. And it's been reinforced. The narcissistic God, the Father, has been reinforced by many of us, by our parents. So we spent so much of our lifetimes, rather than tuning into who we are, our real authentic selves, tuning into what we want, tuning into what we came here to give to the planet. Instead of doing that, which we were supposed to do as little people. And that's what our play was all about, finger painting, or building in the sand, or telling stories, was about us practicing and learning our soul missions, our soul purpose. But instead, so many of us spend all that time, like totally focused externally on, "Oh my gosh, is it safe, to come out of my room, or to go into the house, or, is it safe? Is my dad, sober, or whatever? Is my dad in a good mood? Is my mom, in a good place? Or is a teacher, going to have a nervous breakdown, or you know, because we were little people, vulnerable and very sensitive, but we had to pay attention and decide how we needed to act, how we needed to take care of the adults around us, many of us, which was ironical. So we have that hurt child, we have that scared child, we have that terrified child that we have to always be paying attention to. It always goes back to that, and always making ourselves feel safe, feel loved, feel worthy, feel important, and know that this is the end of the cycle. I know it's hard. It's hard to believe that, but that's why spiritual knowledge is so powerful. And that's why they've kept it out of the Bibles. They've kept it out. That's why right now on social media, they're pouring all kinds of spiritual gurus and people in, talking about the kind of the new age, new earth, which is really not, it's just kind of fluffy. All you have to do, just go to the fifth dimension, 5D earth. And I do use 5D earth a lot, fifth dimension, just because it's a key word. But then I bring people over, because the truth is the fifth dimensional Tara and Gaia, that pathway has been closed. It will be opened up eventually, but right now we're using another pathway. But it's all here. It's all coming here now. So the important thing is it does take work. Okay, it takes inner work, because these frequencies, these dimensions are inside of you. It's always an inside job. So as you clear out, I just talked about the physical body, the emotional body, the mental programming, that you have of always looking to other people, and knowing the spiritual truth that we are in fail safe. This is all correcting itself. The poles aren't going to shift. There's not going to be Armageddon. Stop putting your energy in that. Start focusing on the beautiful new earth that you want to be part of, that you want to create. What kind of life do you want to create for yourself? How do you want to live? What do you want to do every day with your life when you wake up? How do you want to share yourself? What are your unique gifts and talents, and how do you want to give that, exchange that with people for, money, for good money, for good pay, to live a beautiful lifestyle that you want to live, and that leads you to the other two areas. Your financial, okay, because your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, and social, which is what we are talking about here on the Infinite Human, and what I the work that needs to be done right now. So that it was part of what I'm doing. Financial abundance is your right, and that comes also from the next thing: finding your tribe, networking, social evolution, not doing something you hate and trying to please the wrong people and trying to fit into a broken society that's breaking you, doing a job you hate in a place you hate that's making you sicker and sicker every day. No, it's not what it's about. It's about really having the courage to find out who you are and be it every day. And as you are that, as you follow your bliss, you will magnetize, you will pull into yourself the people, that, you know, are your tribe, that are part of your new earth communities, that love what you have, that celebrate you, not tolerate you, that want to, pay for your services, and you can get something from them too, because we're all looking, we need things on a much more expansive level than the levels we've been getting things like medicine and food and entertainment and education. And, it's all been very, very finite. So we're in a whole new consciousness renaissance. It's a very exciting time to be alive, although we do just need to push through. Don't even feed the fear monster. Don't even feed it. Just say, oh, yeah, you're still there. And pretty soon it's just going to become laughable. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you used to really scare me, but just like looking at your children's toys or something. Yeah, I used to be really afraid of that, whatever, that puppet. So Don't feed it. Don't give your power there. Your power always goes to yourself first, infinite God source within. And that's you, the true you. And just feed that. Listen to that because it will guide you. It will tell you and have the courage to follow that and let all the other stuff just fall away. And that will carry you on the magical crystallo spiral road, onto the highest version of yourself and onto your true organic timelines. And thank you. Thank you. I just want to thank you for all the people that have signed up for my course, the Change Yourself, Change the World. I'm really excited because I've done this before, but it's the first time I've done it like since the whole scandemic thing. And I've got so much more, awareness and tools that I'm bringing into that. I think it's going to be so timely because we're going to do it right through the Lionsgate. We're starting off the first Sunday of August. We're doing it every Sunday in August live at 6 p.m. this time, 6 to 7 p.m. on European time. And you can sign up for it on my website if you haven't already. I think there's some spaces left, but I've got a special running. I'm not going to keep it going much longer, but I think it's going to be amazing because it's really with the energy, the timing, the downloads I'm getting. I think it's going to be that support and that gentle, loving, unconditional, sacred cyberspace environment with the intention of really just clearing everything that's pulling you back to the old timelines, clearing away that fear, clearing away that any of the triggers that are still, just stopping you from really just flying physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and socially. Best investment you can ever make is in yourself. And it's the intention. If you have that really strong intention and you show up, and you put your money down because that's an investment. It's important to say, hey, I'm putting, some money into this, some energy into this. I think it's going to be amazing. I just noticed it's going to be amazing. And I love to do it because I learn so much when I offer something. It's part of it's just the way things work. When you put something out there, it takes on a life of its own. So I can feel that life really happening and feel like the right people are going to be drawn to it. And it's going to be so amazing because we're going to be connecting vertically and, horizontally, but on such on many different levels. So, and I think we'll all leave like not only deeply changed, but really ready to get down to business because September's going to be, after the Lionsgate, it's going to just open up for so many of us. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I will be gone next week because I will be in Florence, but the following week. So I'll be back with my talk show, which is going through shifts now. And everything's on my website again, www.infinitehuman.com. And the course is called Change Your Life, Change the World. It's in the shop. So check that out and subscribe. And, I'd love to hear from you guys. I appreciate everyone who's reached out and, said how much they appreciate, what I say, and it resonates and it's helping them on their journey because that makes me feel wonderful inside. And it makes Kiki feel happy too. All right. Love to you guys and take care of yourselves and see you soon. Ciao for now.